How's it going, guys? It's your boy Kanji FPL and welcome back to the YouTube channel. And honestly, I've been killing it in FPL. I went from 300k to 80k to 30k. Things have just been flowing my way and I'm feeling fantastic. And I think there's one thing to remember. We're actually through 25% of the FPL season. There's so many more points that are up for grabs. So let's just stay patient, stay humble. And I think this week is one of the most interesting weeks. You can literally captain whoever you want. So why don't we break down captaincy and jump right into my Game Week 10 team selection. Before we jump into my Game Week 10 team selection, I just want to say a quick thank you to Kieran Trippier. You know, Game Week 9 was unbelievable. To pick up 10 points from my captain, just so solid. Trippier, you've been amazing so far this season. I had a Game Week rank in the top 300k. Usually whenever you have a Game Week rank within the top 1 million, you've had a great week. So I went from 80k to 30k, and it wasn't just Trippier that returned. I just had returns all across the squad. Like, it was a very high scoring week for most people, myself included. So I'm happy to have had the players that I did, and my wildcard is paying off. The only reason that my team has been doing well, it kind of comes down to three main factors. Number one, Haaland hasn't been getting braces or hat tricks every week. Number two, I've been nailing my captains. So 2 weeks ago, I captained Mo Salah for 15 points, and last week I captained Trippier for 10 points. And the third factor is that my squad as a whole has been returning points, and I think I've been returning more points than people that have Salah plus Haaland because of the balance of my squad. The reason why I love it so much specifically is when I look at the defense, I just love those players. I think I just have the best defenders in the game right now. I think Arsenal's defense is really solid, and I have the best defender in Ben White. I have Liverpool's best defender in Trent Alexander-Arnold. I have Aston Villa's best defender in Matty Cash, and I've got Newcastle's best defender in Kieran Trippier. And I think when I look at the teams that are wildcarding right now, they're not spending enough money in defense. They're going for cheap options like Schär, Botman, Burn, Tsimikas, Gabriel, and I think they're trying to spend a lot of money in their attack. But to me, I'm not sure if that's the right play because Haaland hasn't been pulling up trees. But it's just the safer way to play. So I understand why they're going with it. And I think Tsimikas is a gift, especially given that he was benched in Europa League. So I've completely changed my tune on that Tsimikas pick. I think he is a good pick. In fact, when I look at my squad, I think I trust the defense. I trust the strikers. I think Alvarez is an XG overperformer. I mean, think about his trophy cabinet, getting Copa America. He's starting every single game for Man City. He's probably been Man City's first best player or even second best player this season. And then when I look at my other striker, Salah Watkins, there's no way I'm selling him. He's just playing out of his skin this year. He's playing great. He has more FPL points than Haaland, so no way I'm selling him. So when I look at my mids, I've got Mo Salah, who's obviously nailed, and then I've got Luis Diaz, and he's the one that I'm the most proud of. I noticed the pattern that he was getting starts in the Premier League and then benches in the Europa League, and that pattern has continued. And of course, around the corner, we've got Nottingham Forest and Luton, so there's no way I would sell him. Then I'm moving on to Son, who's been the talisman of Spurs. Ever since he moved into that striker position, he's been getting a lot of big chances. Expected statistics are off the charts in that position, and I'm expecting that he's going to be on penalties for Spurs. So the only players that I feel like are potential sells in my team would be Madison, Kulusevski, and if I'm looking to fund something from my defense, I would probably sell Trent over Trippier because I think Trippier is more of the season-long hold, whereas Trent is just like a player that I have as a differential for now. So those are the three players that I feel like I need to sell in order to fund my guy, Bukayo Saka. I do feel like that is the one player in my team that I am unhappy with because I don't own him. Like, I just think he's a season-long hold. And if you just look at the fixtures from Game Week 10 to Game Week 22, you'll understand. They're mouth-watering. They're honestly gorgeous. By the time this fixture run ends, I'm expecting Arsenal to be in first place in the league. Like, that's how great they are. And I think the question is Saka alone good enough? Or do you think you should go for somebody like Odegaard and Martinelli as well? And that's the problem that I have with this, is because when I filter for the league table and I sort it by XG on the total for the season so far, Arsenal are 10th. They're not clicking. And I feel like there's two factors. Number one, Arteta has changed the system. And number two, they haven't been playing Jesus enough. And because of that, I feel like they're just not as cohesive as they usually are. So I'm not sure if I really want to go for Odegaard and Martinelli as differentials, especially given the fact that they're kind of expensive. And I think cheaper players like Mbeumo and Mitoma are just better picks given their own fixtures. So I think I'm going to be going against double Arsenal attack. And I think just bringing Saka in is all I would need. But Saka is an upgrade. To get to Saka in midfield, I'm definitely not selling Son because he's the talisman for Spurs, and I think there's a chance Spurs could go out there and be top four. And I think I just want to own Son. Because he's on pens, talisman number 9, no way I'm selling him. No way I'm selling Mo. So the only way I could afford him is actually selling either Madison, and I have to sell Kulusevski. So I have to either sell Madison or Trent, and that's the big, big decision because I'm kind of stuck where it's like Trent is the luxury player that I've gone with because I don't have Haaland, and Madison is the player that doesn't have the good fixtures. So it's like a catch-22 position of what do I do? And my gut is kind of leading me towards keeping Trent. Now, of course, I'm going to say that because my heart is with Liverpool. Like, I'm a Liverpool fan. Trent is my favorite player in the entire league, so you have to take that with a pinch of salt. However, when I look at the fixtures coming up for Spurs, they don't really scream goals to me. I mean, they're playing Crystal Palace, who are a mid-table team defensively, Chelsea, who are a really solid defense, Man City, who are the best defense. And I mean, if I keep Madison and Son in my team, I feel like I'm kind of cheering for Spurs to go out there and win the league. And I feel like that's not really what I think. I think Arsenal and Liverpool will be the players that are up there. Now, I could always just key to Liverpool coverage by going down from somebody like Trent to the gift that Tsimikas is, especially because he was benched in Europa League. But I don't think I'd be able to live with myself. If Trent went out there, got a goal, or got a goal off a free kick, or a goal from open play, even picked up 2 assists, like I could totally see that against the fixtures against, Forest, Luton, Fulham, and Sheffield. Like I can definitely see hauls in those games. So I just find it hard to sell Trent because that's my boy. So I'm just really biased. Like I know for sure I want to be selling Madison, and I just have to move him down to Mitoma. There's no other way to afford Bukayo Saka because he's essential in my opinion. So that's the move that I am going to be doing. The problem is, what do I do with Mitoma once I bring him in? Because I see the first 4 fixtures are absolutely gorgeous. And speaking of the first 4 fixtures, that is why I'm not going to be going for somebody like Diaby. 1, I think there's rotation risk with somebody like Bailey. And 2, he actually has a really tough fixture in Gameweek 13 where he plays Spurs. So that's why the Aston Villa mid is not really on my mind. And I do feel like Bailey can come in there at any moment and take Diaby's spot. And honestly, whenever there's a player that's not in the Premier League last season and they're coming new to the Premier League, it usually takes me time to gain faith and trust in them as the player that they are. But what I noticed with Aston Villa recently is that Diaby has been getting instructions to not play as a second striker, but to create chances for the team. I'm seeing him not run past Ollie Watkins, and I'm seeing Ollie Watkins stay centrally, and Diaby's running on the wing and cutting back onto his left foot and creating chances for Ollie Watkins rather than cutting in and shooting. So I feel like Diaby isn't going to be as explosive as I thought he could be around the Game Week 4 to Game Week 5 mark when I was watching Aston Villa play. I feel like Unai Emery has adjusted the tactics within his squad to make Ollie Watkins the spearhead of their attack. So to me, I think Diaby's not as good of a pick as Brighton's Kaoru Mitoma because he's the talisman of the team. I know he doesn't have any set pieces, like he's not on any free kicks or not on any penalties, but I just think because Brighton are 3rd for XG over the course of the season, having somebody in your team that is from Brighton is going to be important. I just think they're going to score a lot of goals. And there's 2 main options for me. There's Joao Pedro and then there's Mitoma. Now, Pedro has 2 spots that he can play. He can play in the 10 and he can play up top. But I think Ferguson is a better striker than him, and I think Ansu Fati is a better 10 than him. The only other spot that's available is the right wing spot, and with March out, I think that's a Dingra spot now. And I think Buonanotte is kind of just not playing as great as Adingra. I think Adingra's kind of earned that spot. So if I'm thinking about Brighton, I'm not really going to be going for those differentials because of the rotation risk with Roberto De Zerbi. It's either going to be Mitoma or Pedro because he's on pens. And because I think Pedro isn't nailed in the squad, I just feel like it's Mitoma or nothing. So I am just going to be backing Mitoma. And I feel like the reason why I do like him so much is the first 4 are so great from 10 to 13. And it rotates really well with the player that I really do want long-term in Bryan Mbeumo, because I feel like he's like a mini Mo Salah, where he's like a left winger on the penalties, talisman of the team, potentially plays at the striker position in the bigger games. But Mbeumo he has tough fixtures, Chelsea, West Ham, Liverpool, Arsenal. It's just hard to own Mbeumo. And that's where Mitoma comes in. He comes in for 4 weeks, and then I move him on to Mbeumo, who could potentially play against Luton at home, Brighton, who are not a good defense, Sheffield United, who are one of the worst teams in the league, Aston Villa at home, but at least it's at home. It's a tougher fixture. There's a blank in Game Week 18, so that's kind of the downside of this plan. But hopefully I'd be able to play 4 at the back in that position in that week, or maybe even just play Archer. And then in game week 19, he'll have Wolves at home, and in game week 20, it's supposed to be a double game week against Man City. Now, you have to keep in mind that Mitoma Mbeumo is going away to AFCON in game week 21, so that's something to think about, but hopefully when he gets that double in 20, we won't be that worried about him. And the reason why it works so well is because you can just move right back to Mitoma in game week 21, where he has Wolves, Luton, Palace, Spurs, Sheffield, Everton, Fulham, Forest. Like, these fixtures are gorgeous. Like, Brighton are going to go out there and score a lot of goals. And if I'm stuck in a position where I have to hold Mitoma, I don't have the transfers to move to Mbeumo, that's fine as well. Like, Mitoma is a really great season-long hold, so I'm really content on just keeping him as well if I'm in that position. But overall, I do really like that Mitoma and Mbeumo rotation, especially at that 6.5 price point. I just think it's a great enabler position over the long term. So moving on from this, now that I've kind of just justified why I'm going to be going to Mitoma and why I want to keep Trent, apart from, Trent having my heart, I just feel like the key decision this week is going to come down to captaincy. There's three main captains to discuss. It's Bukayo Saka against Sheffield at home, Salah versus Nottingham Forest at home, and Watkins versus Luton at home. Unfortunately, they're all at home, so it's hard to have that decisive factor where I could just lean to the home teams. They're all at home, so any of them are potential captaincy options, so we should jump in and break this down. However, before we do that, it's important to understand that in Game Week 11 and Game Week 13, I don't really have any decisions to make. And in Game Week 14 and in Game Week 15, I don't have any decisions to make either. I will always be backing Mo Salah over Bukayo Saka because Salah plays for a more attacking team, and he's probably just a better player at this point in time. So my only key decision is going to be in Game Week 10 and Game Week 12. And honestly, in Game Week 12, I'm probably just going to lean towards captaining Saka. He's at home, and it's easier to score a goal against Burnley than it is against Wolves. So realistically, Game Week 10 is the only real dilemma in terms of captaincy, so I have to break this down in depth. So let's break it down from a player perspective. Salah has the highest expected goal involvement per 90 non-penalty. However, let's be realistic. Saka and Salah have penalties, so that's an added string to their bow. When we look at the team attack, Salah is ranked second relative to, Aston Villa and Arsenal, but the difference between Aston Villa and Arsenal is very small. However, when we look at the opponents that the teams are facing, Salah plays the toughest opponent. So this is the catch-22 where he's like the best in terms of individual statistics, the best team attack, but then the worst in terms of the opponent that he's facing. And because the opponent is going to be difficult, and because I have Luis Diaz in my squad, I don't think I'm going to be captaining Mo Salah. So for me, I just feel like I'm going to be avoiding that captaincy because I could see that being a really close game. In fact, I've only been to like 2 Premier League games, and going to that Liverpool versus Forest game was the one that I went to last year at home. And Salah was pretty anonymous for the entire game. So I don't really think I need to captain Mo Salah. But the thing with Mo is he doesn't really need to play well to put up the points. Like, he played so poorly last week. Like, I just can't get that performance out of my mind. But he can still put up the points. Like, that's just how great Mo Salah is. He's the FPL king for a reason. But right now I do have my doubts. And so I am going to be avoiding him from a captaincy perspective. And I'm just going to be going based off of the fixture. Luton and Sheffield just feels like a better fixture than Nottingham Forest. I'm just going to keep it simple. So because of that, it's a 50-50 decision between Watkins and Saka. Now, when I look at the team attack, it's pretty similar in terms of the XG created. When I look at the expected goals conceded of the defenders they're playing against, it's very similar. So it just comes down to penalties, really. Like, Saka should be the shout because he's on penalties. And I think this is what the analytics community would do, is they would captain Saka. Given all the logic that I've put forth so far, if you're hesitant in terms of captaining Salah, you should captain Saka. However, you have to put everything in context, right? Where Saka is coming off an injury where I feel like if there's a game to rest him and bench him early, this would be the game to do so. Not that he's going to be benched, but I mean, he'll likely just get subbed early, maybe at the 60th minute mark or 70th minute mark when Arsenal are comfortably already going to be winning that game. And then you could juxtapose that with, if you're expecting Arsenal to be winning that game, maybe they've scored 3 or 4 goals already and Saka would have gotten a couple of returns. And maybe you're right. But I feel like there's going to be less minutes for Saka. And I think secondly, Gabriel Jesus is injured. And whenever Jesus is injured, you're missing that player that links up the play, and Saka has to be that guy that links up the play because Odegaard hasn't really been doing that this year. So Saka goes from a player that has goal and assist threat to mainly being somebody that has mostly assist threat and then shots from outside the box. That's kind of what I'm expecting to see in this game, where I'm expecting Nketiah to be starting up top and be getting a lot of the big chances. And when I think of Aston Villa playing against Luton at home, I just think everyone's going to be looking to feed Ollie Watkins. And I feel like because of that, it's a grass FC type of pick where it's a 50-50 decision. And the analytics community would say pick Bukayo Saka in this position, but I've got to just trust my instincts. And my instincts are telling me to captain Ollie Watkins. Now, my decisions so far this season have been paying off. And I think I have the room to take on all this risk. I'm sitting at 30K in the world. Like, I have nothing to really worry about. You know, my goal is to finish in the top 100K. My goal is to be in the top 1 million by Game Week 10. So to be sitting at top 30K, it's unreal. I obviously don't want to be taking unnecessary risks, but I think this is a great week to just be differential. And I think if you're sitting out there and you're watching this video and you're thinking to yourself like, hey, this guy's going to captain Watkins, so I'll do it too. I think, no, you should captain the player that you think is going to score the most points this week. To me, I think that's going to be Ollie Watkins. So just confirming the transfers that I made, it was Kulusevski to Mitoma and Maddison to Saka. I do have 0.2 in the bank. And the only reason I have 0.2 in the bank is because Mitoma and Saka both fell in price over the past week or so. I actually jumped on Saka before his price rise tonight, so I'm feeling really happy about that. Gotta make that money, boy. And yeah, my squad looks really strong. I mean, think about my defense. Like, I have Ben White, who's playing Sheffield United at home, Liverpool, Trent, who's playing Nottingham Forest at home, and Cash, who's playing Luton at home. Like, those are incredible fixtures. That could be 3 clean sheets. But that could also be like 3 potential attacking returns. So I think I have a lot of returns in defense. I'd obviously start Ariel at home versus Everton instead of Turner, who plays Liverpool away. I mean, Turner couldn't even get a clean sheet versus Luton. So I just feel like I'll be very hesitant to start him in any game going forward, to be honest. Moving on to my mids, I've got Saka and Son, who are now my season-long holds because they're playing for teams where I'm going to finish in the top 4 and on penalties, assuming that they don't pick up any injuries. They're near to start every game, and so I just don't think I'd ever be looking to sell them. It's never going to be worth the transfer. I do have Salah and Diaz, so I do have that double Liverpool attacking exposure to that Nottingham Forest fixture, so I'm going to be excited to watch that game. And I have my differential that I'm bringing into my squad, Kairu Mitoma. I can't wait to see what he can do. He was incredible for me last year. I actually brought Mitoma in before other people brought him in, so it was hard to start the season without him. And when he was scoring points, I'm like, man, this guy's unreal, especially at 6.5. So I was like kind of scared to watch Brighton play because of how involved he was. And so I'm just happy to finally have him as part of my squad. And I'm expecting his effective ownership to be close to 50 or 60%, given the fixtures that Brighton are about to embark on. Lastly, I've got my strikers. I've got Ollie Watkins, who's going to be my captain this week. And of course, Saka is my vice. And we've got Alvarez. And this is the big decision point this week, where last week I had a team where I captained Kieran Trippier, and this week I'm benching him. Like, that sounds outrageous, but if you look at my squad, I don't really think I would bench anyone. I think having 3 defenders is the meta formation so far this season. I think having 5 mids is also the meta formation. I think 2 strikers is meta as well. So it just comes down to Alvarez or Trippier. And to me, I just think that Man City are going to go out there against Manchester United and absolutely demolish them. If Erik ten Hag decides to be expansive in this game and decides to go toe-to-toe with Man City, I think City will absolutely destroy them. Like, expect them to score 4 or 5 goals. And I think not having any attacking exposure to that game could be like self-destruction, really. However, I think Erik ten Hag will be reasonable, and I think he realizes that Man City are just on a different level and United are not on that level right now, and I'm expecting them to play very defensive. So there is an argument to potentially bench Alvarez, but because of the potential upside, I find it hard to bench him. Like, Alvarez is an XG overperformer, and that's the thing. Trippier has been so consistent this year as well. It's a very tough decision. I wish I could just play my bench boost this week, and I wouldn't have this problem, but if you look at the rest of my bench, it's pretty awful, so that's obviously not an option. So I'm just going to be backing my gut and trust the attacker. I'm just going to keep it simple. Even though I captain Trips, I'm going to be benching him. I know that looks so weird, but it is what it is, and like everything is like very team dependent, you know? But there are a couple of things I did want to mention before I end the video. Like, the potential players I could be looking to sell in my squad, like the players on the fringes would be Kairu Mitoma, who I'd be looking to do to Mbeumo, and then Tariq Mitchell, that when the fixtures change could potentially be, you know, maybe a Stupinian, or maybe even Ruben Diaz, Kyle Walker, or maybe even a Chelsea defender later on, like Colwell or Thiago Silva, depending on how much money I have available. In my midfield, I am still scouting Diaby, even though I don't think it's the right move to go to him. Of course, Mbeumo is on my watch list. Now that I've sold Maddison, he's now on my watch list. And of course, the Arsenal mids. If I think that they're starting to pick up form, maybe I might have to make a move of Luis Diaz to potentially an Arsenal mid if I have the money available. And lastly, the number one player on my watch list is Erling Haaland. I'm pretty much cheering against him every week. I'm hoping that he doesn't pull up hat tricks out of his butt. So Haaland, just stay quiet, and Erik ten Hag, please don't play expensive. That'll honestly destroy my game week if Haaland puts up the crazy 5 returns that he did last year against Man United. So just praying for the best, and I can't wait to just watch this game from an Aston Villa perspective, and can't wait to watch Salah Watkins demolish Luton this weekend. So if I've provided some value to you over the course of this video, please just drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.